Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grip Lock, Foundation Disc Golf's weekly podcast. I'm Hunter, joined, as always, by Trevor. And we got quite the show today. We had a lot that went down last week with the OTB Open. And then we also had a pretty interesting Paige Pierce interview over on the Nick and Matt show.
Yeah.
I got a lot of talking points out of that. And then we'll be taking a look at U.S. Women's, and obviously have a little Trevor's trivia sprinkled in there. And to make that call that... to be honest with you, I don't exactly remember what it was. Oh, yeah, very interesting to make that call.
Okay.
One that if I was in the scenario, I don't know if I would know the right answer. But luckily,
right.
the PDGA provides us with the right answer. So,
whatever answer they make up.
Yeah. Before we get too far into the show, I want to highlight yet another review. Again, if you're listening over on Apple Podcasts, or any platform that has a review system, please go ahead and leave us a review. We really appreciate it. We read each and every one of them, and we've used it to make a lot of changes here. Even, heck, the setup is partially due to reviews and y'all letting us know what you like and what you dislike. But this one comes from Nick S215. The title is Greatest Disc Golf Podcast.
Wow.
So that's going to be our new... I'm going to introduce the show saying, welcome to the Greatest Disc Golf Podcast, according to Nick.
We have a source.
Yeah, we have a source now. He said, I absolutely love listening to these podcasts every week. Foundation got me really into disc golf and taught me a lot to help advance my game. Thank you, Hunter and Trevor, for continuing to put a smile on my face every week. Hashtag Bogey Bros.
Nice.
Those just make you feel good, you know?
Yeah.
That's how I like starting my Wednesday mornings. Yeah, we needed that before we started this show.
Maybe we won't argue for the first 20 minutes this time.
I will not make that mistake again. Well, what ended up last week? Well, we ended up realizing as we talked about it more the day went on, I just represented or presented my initial point because it wasn't meant to be a debate between me and you. I was just trying to talk to Connor.
Yeah.
And so I misrepresented. We agreed.
If you had just started with your main point and just presented that, I would have just agreed with you.
Yeah, which 95% of the people listening probably don't know my main point because when I listen back to my argument, I don't even know what I was saying because I wasn't planning to argue. I was planning to just bring it up to Connor and then just move on.
You got to be able to improv, man.
Well, obviously, I'm apparently not very good at that. But the main point of it was that not necessarily the top. The top has reached their ceiling. So
let's just not even talk about it.
I was worried about the lower.
Okay.
We're not going to get into the argument. I just want to present my point so that everyone knows what I was saying.
Okay.
The top has reached their ceiling, so I'm worried about the stroke separation as the lower end gets closer to them. The stroke separation is not going to be there.
Yes, sure. Okay.
That was it. And I feel like if I would have said that,
that's fine. I think you're right.
Yeah. But I didn't say that. So let's get into the OTB Open. We're just going to go straight into the MPO results. We had Eagle McMahon taking it down by 4 strokes over James Conrad and AB tied for second. Does that surprise you? We watched the tournament, we talked about the tournament, but hearing Eagle and then James and AB, when I read that, I was like, that can't be right. I watched this tournament.
Yeah, James has hung around. I do think that a big reason for a lot of the guys that actually, AB just I think he was in third, wasn't he, going into the last round, third or fourth?
Yeah, he was on the lead card.
He was right there. So that's not surprising. Because it was good for him to be able to play a decent enough final round because we know that can be really good in early rounds. And James has been hanging around in events. He's having a pretty decent season.
Yeah, he really is.
I didn't really see any coverage of him to know how he was attacking that course, but
I think he was on chase card the final round.
Yeah, I think he has that long backhand turnover that probably helped a bit, and he has some pretty good speed control as well. But I think it has to do a lot with a lot of the guys that we would have expected to sit in those spots, the Paul, Ricky, and Calvins. They were all trying to make a push on the final day.
Yeah.
Calvin got pretty close before finally making some bogeys down the stretch. But I think it's just because they were all making a push and it cost them strokes because of how aggressive they were playing. Because that's the type of course where if you want to play ultra aggressive and really go for it, you absolutely can, and it can cost you.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say is I think what the thing was the storylines all weekend were looking at Ricky, Calvin, Paul, and looking at what they were doing, chasing the lead. And so it was almost, to me at least watching it, was almost like a quiet second place for James and AB.
Yeah, it was.
Because I didn't really hear their name mentioned much. And so when I went to write it down, in my head I was thinking, oh, Eagle won, and I think Ricky and Calvin, and then Paul slipped up. And then I saw James and AB, which Ricky and Calvin I think were 1 stroke behind them. in the tie for fourth. But still, I was like, wait a minute. How did James and AB get there?
Right,
I don't know. I don't know. It just seemed weird to me. For some reason, I completely missed where they were doing that good.
It's funny because I looked at the payout to this morning, and when I first saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, because I saw the winner made $5,000, which was like, oh, that's pretty good. And then I saw the very next pay slot was $2,800. I was like, no way. I was like, they did a really sick drop like in the pay scale. And then I realized it's because it was a tie for second. So that quickly deflated.
Some of our listeners might not understand how ties work as far as payout goes. They basically, like a tie for second, they add second place and third place together and then divide it by 2.
Yeah, there was a lot of massive ties in that whole pay. Like there were like a ton of people that all made like $865. There's like a bunch of them.
Yeah, so that's one. Well, I do have like some stuff about the course design on here, but that was one thing where this course was very interesting to me. I really liked the design of it. But and I'm sure you'll expand on this a little bit. I heard the main complaint I heard was there's too many rollers. The course, I mean, it's a golf course that they put some low ceilings and stuff on to where the roller a lot of times was the best play if you wanted to get way down the fairway.
Yeah.
But what's interesting to me is like if you look just straight up scoring wise, this course seemed pretty great. As far as we only had one player average 10 under or better the tournament, and he won Eagle. But on the flip side of that coin, it didn't accomplish, in my mind at least, it didn't quite accomplish what you normally, like when we talk about courses getting harder, one of the main reasons is the scoring separation.
Yeah.
It almost seemed kind of like a jumbled mess. Like a lot of players were shooting, like it was a hard course, but not necessarily hard, if that makes any sense at all. Because it was like there was a lot of people shooting very similar scores to where it almost accomplished the same thing separation-wise as an easy course. If that makes, if you get, does that make?
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but I think you have to realize that on the easy course that happens because it's birdie or die. On these courses, like even though that may happen, I thought the score separation looked pretty good as far as like the best players rose to the top.
Yes.
That's kind of the important thing when you think about like score separation. Yeah, it was close because it was like we had a guy at 20 under, then we had a bunch of guys at 19 under, then 18 under. Like it was close, but the best players were the ones rising to the top. So that was what was really important about that. Yeah, what was I going to say? What were you saying about the score separation just then?
I was just saying that there wasn't a ton.
I was saying, so like on an easy course, like the only reason that happens where it gets jumbled is because it's just so birdie or die that like a bad break here and there
costs you a ton.
And typically in those courses, there's a lot more par threes, I feel like. On a course like this, where there's a lot more like different options in shot selection and there's a lot more par 4s and 5s and OB and things like that, you're forced to really play golf and like manage the course. So I think it's a lot more fair. The roller thing was my biggest issue, and that's probably just a personal like preference thing, I guess. Like if you like just watching guys lay down rollers, personally, like I think the problem with this course is not that there were a lot of chances to throw a roller if you wanted to. It's there was too many holes where you had to throw a roller.
Yeah, it was your best shot.
It was your best shot. I think on a good disc golf course, there should probably be a maximum of 2, maybe 3 holes where roller is your best shot. It's like an occasional thing in the sport of disc golf. I want to see air shots. I think that's the way the game was meant to be played. You know, they made a disc so they could fly, not so it could roll on the ground. That's why it goes left and right. It's not meant to roll.
Well,
you know, it is in the sense that it's circular, but not in the sense that, you know,
the aerodynamics weren't made to be on the ground.
Exactly. So yeah, that's just my whole thing on it. But I thought overall, like the course was relatively exciting.
As far as like, if you look at it, if you take out all other courses in the world, which kind of makes this point irrelevant.
Here we go.
But if you look at just ball golf courses, I thought it was a very well-designed ball golf, disc golf hybrid.
They definitely did something new because, and I even thought this, I feel like I thought this at the previous, because they just changed the layout of this course, right?
I'm not fully sure all the changes that were made.
I say, because I remember watching the San Francisco Open in previous years and thinking that this is one of the better ball golf, disc golf courses there is, because a lot of them it just ends up being a hyzer fest. So I respect that they try to do something different, and honestly, it's probably better to be on this side of the extreme than
that's what I was thinking.
A bunch of wide open hyzers. At least it's something different for them.
This was more interesting to watch for me than heck even say last weekend at the challenge at Goat Hill, because the challenge at Goat Hill there was a lot of wide open tee shots, and there was a lot of OB and like danger brought in, but a lot of shots were just like throw really far, try to be down there, and then worry about where you land.
Right. That's like the only defense of those really open courses are really long holes, because they just have to make them long, and then like putting baskets on hillsides right next to bunkers, and like that's like okay, I guess. Sometimes I think it's a little over the top.
It's cool, but you see it every time you see a ball golf course.
Yeah, it gets a little repetitive. I like there are plenty of ball golf courses out there, and like heck, we just saw one over at the Blue Ridge Tour event.
Oh, Thorn Spring.
At Thorn Spring, where there's enough trees on a lot of ball golf courses, at least, or the ones they should be picking for these types of events, and other natural obstacles that you can make a good disc golf course. Now, I understand the biggest difficulty in those ball golf courses is making them loop in a way that there's not a huge stretches of land in between holes, or they're not intersecting, but usually there's enough foliage and trees and things of that nature to like create a disc golf course that has defense other than just length and bunkers and greens. Because I don't know about everybody else, but like I understand like it's a great option for the sport of disc golf to use ball golf courses, because of they can be rented out and they're just big plots of land to do whatever you want. So like it makes sense, but to me it's a little like, I don't know if I want to say gimmicky or just kind of a little cheesy that like we're playing at the top level of our sport on another sports course, and like our OB is their green, and like it just looks a little weird to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I understand like it's what we got to do right now, but like long term, like I don't really want to be playing on ball.
Absolutely, long term. We were actually just talking about this the other day. Long term, courses will almost have to eventually, at the top of the sport, be on like private just disc golf courses.
Yeah. Because
if not, you just don't have control. Because even this tournament, right, the OTB Open, let's say that next year the golf course goes, you know what, no.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't be here.
Right.
Or let's say like the public park, we were just talking about the Memorial. The Memorial back, what is it, March? One of the more iconic courses in our sport. It's irrelevant now. We can't really use it for a number of reasons. One, we outgrew the course. The sport did. Two, if they want to make an XL layout, they have to get approval, which they did for the All-Star tournament. They have to get approval, but it was only, 9 holes? So you couldn't really use that for an actual tournament.
Yeah.
They have to get approval from the park to actually fully design that. And the third issue was they couldn't actually get full control of the park. So the Memorial still happened, but it couldn't be an Elite Series because the Pro Tour wanted full control of the park, and they couldn't get it. So that's where issues of even like public parks, you still don't own that. You still don't, like, you might be able to rent it out, but like New London, for instance, here, the course that's probably the closest course to being a Pro Tour caliber course around us.
And that certainly is Pro Tour caliber.
Yeah, if we were running a Pro Tour event there year after year, and it's in a like industrial park, right? If some business comes in and offers the county $2 million for the plot of land that is holes 9 through 16, the disc golf course is gone.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when it's on publicly owned land, there's only so much you can do at the Elite Series level. And then like we were even talking about USDGC. Yeah, that course is the best example of like history on a course, and you show up to a course.
It's our
and
most iconic course.
Yeah, and you just know it. It just feels prestigious because of when you walk up to hole 17, everyone's thinking about the big blowups on 17.
Right.
Every year I see it, I think of Johnny McRae, when he literally just had to pray and hope he landed on it. Like, not figuratively pray. Like, he literally just stood on the tee pad and prayed, like, I just threw my 5th putter OB. What am I about to do? That's iconic.
Yeah.
But do we really think 50 years from now that Winthrop University hasn't developed enough to permanently damage that course in some way?
Or, like, it's like one of those things, like, if Winthrop is thriving and develops, then they're going to probably use that land. It's a lot of land.
Yeah.
Or if they go under for some reason and have to sell that land, then they're not going to probably keep the disc golf
Yeah, and
course.
the next thing you know, what if that happens 30 years from now? And then out of nowhere, boom, the most prestigious disc golf event that's been going on for 70, 80 years is just gone.
The only like hope would be that if like Winthrop ever had to sell or something, that like somebody in disc golf was big enough that they could buy it and keep it disc golf. But like, what are the odds?
But yeah, the other thing I was going to say is right now it's almost like without private courses, you almost have like what you were just explaining, where we're playing on real golf courses where you have the green and you have this weird thing of like we're playing on someone else's territory.
Yeah.
Or you have the other side where we're playing in parks and you have like sometimes like just spectators walking on sidewalks and you're like, oh, well, we got to wait. There's a spectator up ahead, or there's a, woman walking her dog just oblivious to a Pro Tour event, and just like at Idlewild, sometimes that'll happen where they're just like walking up through the fairway, and if they got through the spotters, then they're there. And it's just like, that's kind of where the sport is right now.
Yeah.
Until there's like enough really high level, like Maple Hill, don't really have to worry about that going anywhere unless the course owners for some reason sold, or
right. And that's the case even in ball golf.
Yeah,
like, it is the owners. It's up to them.
And even if the owners sold, they still have a championship level disc golf course that brings in some revenue. Chances are it's still going to stay around.
Yeah.
So courses like that, now Maple Hill Open will slowly become more. It already is, but more and more and more prestigious because you're going to see it every year, and it's not going anywhere.
Right.
But that's definitely something that I think as the sport grows, it's going to move. The top level of the sport is going to move that direction. I don't think the lower level will, because it makes too much sense for like local parks and stuff like that to throw in disc golf because they're already mowing that area. They're already like, it's not like it's adding a lot of extra expenses, but it's giving the local community something else, another outlet. So I don't think disc golf will ever become a fully pay-to-play sport, but I do think the very top end and our iconic courses almost need to, just for the sake of developing the pro side of our sport.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also something that's very hard in disc golf right now is like talking about the pro side. And as it develops, like in golf, it like is all the same, if that makes sense. Where like there's not a public golf course. If there is, I don't know of it.
What do you mean, like a free one you're talking about?
Yeah. Like every golf course I know of, because of how much land it takes up and everything, is a pay to play.
Right. Well, whereas in golf, the term public is just that you're allowed to pay to play.
Yeah, exactly.
Public or private, where you have to be a member of the club.
But what I'm thinking is like in golf, there's the like the Masters course. You don't get to play that as a normal human being. Not even. You have to be invited as a member. Yeah. So what I'm thinking is in disc golf, the Masters course, right? So Masters course in golf is like I could never play it. Me personally, there's no way I could ever play that course. Yeah, that will in disc golf be the pay to play course, right? Where I can play it as a normal disc golfer, I just have to pay to play it. And then the normal courses, like all the golf courses around you, where you have to pay 20, 30, 40, whatever bucks a round, those will be the public parks.
So it's just like a step down, basically.
Yeah,
is what you're saying. Yeah, I agree with that.
Because a lot of times when we talk about things, people are like thinking that it's going to apply directly to them. And it's more of like an indirect thing to farther the pro side of our sport. Because then that'll make the pro side more professional because it gives the Pro Tour full control over it. You don't have at Goat Hill golfers coming on to the course while FPO is still playing because you have full control over it. It's a private property. The only people there are disc golfers. Yeah. You have full control over everything surrounding the event, who's allowed on, who's not. That's fully up to you. It's just going to advance the sport a lot more. And you don't have to worry about, oh, well, yeah, he just skipped right off the golf green. Wow. Yeah. And it's like, weird. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, it is. One other storyline that I want to talk about, it kind of goes back to the rollers, though, is everyone seemed to be throwing a lot of rollers to have their success. But one player, he mentioned this in the Nick and Matt Show interview, was Aaron Gossage. This was kind of a breakout event for him. He found himself on lead card. His hot round was round 2. I believe he shot like an 11 down. He only threw one roller that round. Yeah. Which was pretty surprising.
Yeah, I mean, he was saying, didn't he say he had like a ridiculously massive forehand?
I think he's from Colorado, and if we know anything about Colorado golfers, they can apparently just throw 600 feet when they pop out the womb for some reason. But no, he just said the final round, he said he threw more rollers just because he was watching other people do it and was like, that shot makes too much sense for me not to try. So it does go back to the course design, but what I was more pointing at is like
It was
it was possible to shoot really well out there
Sure.
without throwing a roller.
Sure. Yeah.
But this is a great event for Aaron. One thing that I thought was very cool. First off, he's unsponsored. He said since the tournament has happened, he's been reached out. Like several companies have reached out to him, so he'll probably be sponsored by the end of this week or next week. But another thing that I thought was really cool is the Nick and Matt show was asking him where he was at, and he said he was back home. And they're like, "Oh, when'd you drive in?" And he's like, "Well, I drove overnight because I had to be at work on Monday."
Yeah.
And like I just had to work. He works at a bike shop as a bike mechanic. He also just graduated with a computer science degree, and so he's hoping to find a job that allows him to tour. But basically, his job said, "Yeah, you know, you can take the time off and go see what you're doing." So he's gonna play all the Pro Tour events and everything. But I just thought it was very, I don't know, it kind of shows you that initial grind.
Yeah.
And in my head, doing it the somewhat right way, where he doesn't have to rely on disc golf yet. He has some stable income back home. He's able to every week just go back as much as he can, work it out, work through the week, and then go play on the tour.
Yeah.
And it shows his work ethic because, I mean, very easily you could have somehow called out or something because you're in California. You got to get back to Colorado to work at 9 a.m. the next morning. Like, and you just came in like, what did you come in, like 8th place or something at a Pro Tour event?
Probably made some good money, yeah.
I'm having a hard time showing up at work the next day.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to see kind of where he goes as the season goes on and what develops with him. One thing I wanted to do, too, with the OTB Open before we get over to the FPO side is do a little standings check-in on the Pro Tour standings. I feel like we haven't done this.
Yeah.
So right now, Calvin and Ricky are leading the field by a lot. So Calvin's in first at 344 points. Ricky's in second at 341 points. Eagle is in third at 276 points. 70 points behind Calvin and Ricky. Paul is in fourth at 255 points. So Paul is 90 points out of first place. Kind of crazy. And then Nico is in fifth at 235. First off, this kind of speaks to, on the follow-up, I was talking about how...
Wasn't there an event, though, that Paul... Was there a Silver Series Paul wasn't at that Ricky and Calvin were at?
Yeah, but Silver Series don't really affect it that much because they're worth like 1/4 the points or something like that. I mean, it affects it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely put something into that gap.
But that'll kind of, as the season goes on, I think they only take like your top 8 finishes or something like that. So it'll kind of even itself out.
Right.
But this kind of goes to back to the follow-up. Right now, Ricky, I think, is undisputed. Most people will say Ricky's the top player in the world right now.
Yeah, I'd agree.
On the follow-up, I was saying how Calvin always seems to find his way into like second or third.
Yeah.
And in a season like this with so much parity, that could technically make you the best player in the world.
Yeah.
If you're losing to a different person every week and you're just... I also saw a stat today where Eagles won 4 of the last 11 Pro Tours, which is pretty crazy.
What 4 of the is that? It's this
it goes into last season.
Yeah, OTB Vegas. What did he win last year? He won
D-Glow, right?
He won D-Glow last year, and he won another one back-to-back, didn't he?
He won, Idlewild.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the 4 out of the
last
11.
Well, yeah, when Eagle gets hot, I mean, he goes on tears for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, this kind of, it doesn't fully prove the point because there's a lot more to take into consideration than just the Pro Tour, but Calvin is just... You know, he's won here and there, but he's not consistently winning and dominating, but he's consistently finishing at the top.
Yeah,
and that's separating him a little bit from Ricky.
Him and Ricky are the most consistent players in disc golf, and the only difference is Ricky just ends up on top more often.
Yeah.
Calvin just... I'm not really sure what it is. It might even just be that he's just unlucky a little bit, but Calvin just does not seem to get as many wins as you would think he would.
Yeah, well, I think part of it, too, might just be...
Just hard to win these days.
The experience on tour.
Yeah, that's true.
Because Ricky's been doing this at the top a lot longer, so Ricky kind of... There's something about knowing how to win. Not that Calvin doesn't, but when you've done it enough times and you're in those positions again and again, it just becomes like second nature of what you need to do to win. I think that's something that Calvin will learn kind of as the time goes on. He keeps putting himself in those situations. He's like, yeah, last time I screwed it up because I got too aggressive in this point where realistically if I wait a little bit longer, then I can get aggressive.
Very true.
And next thing you know, he's the one dominating and winning.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to look at as far as standing goes is the kind of cut line for the Pro Tour finals.
Yeah.
So the top 32 in MPO get in. Players on the bubble right now, well, not really on the bubble. This is the bottom end of who's getting in. Raven Newsom is in 32, or is in 32nd in 32. What the heck am I saying? And 32nd with a 2-point lead on 33rd. So he's very close, kind of on that line. Yep. Brody Smith has now moved into 31st, officially making it into the cut. He was in 37th before this weekend. Jumped him up to 31st. He has a 4-point lead over 33rd. So again, not a big lead. And then Philo's in 30th with a 7-point lead on 33rd. So one bad performance from these three players, you could see them kind of shift in and out. But as of right now, Raven, Brody, and Philo would be getting into the Pro Tour.
That bottom few spots will come down to the final event before the Pro, which I saw on the I don't know, because they just called it the Pro Tour finale last year, didn't they? Mm-hmm. I saw this year they're calling it the Tour Championship.
Yeah.
Which
I think last year they called it that, but we always referred to it as the Pro Tour finale.
Okay.
I think they just started dubbing it the Tour Championship.
Right, which is way better.
Yeah, I agree. Now, on this list, assuming all these players play out, I expect all of them to move up. One thing I think that might hurt Philo is if he does more commentary. Yeah. Because we've seen him be brought onto live commentary before. If that happens, that could hurt him overall. Yeah. It's probably a business move where you're guaranteed X amount for being in the booth. And, if I'm not guaranteed that much if I play, as you get Philo has a great voice for commentary. I personally really like when Philo does commentary. If you're in his shoes, there might be some events. Yeah, it's debatable.
I don't really like him.
But if you're in his shoes and you have that offer on the table and there's some events where this course just doesn't fit your strengths, it's a smarter move to just be like, hey, I normally don't play well at this course. I'm guaranteed, 20th place cash if I go and do commentary. It makes a lot more sense for me to commentary.
Commentary makes sense. This is a good gig for a lot of those guys.
Yeah, for sure. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on, though. But I expect Raven and Brody, as the season goes on, to move up a little bit.
Yeah.
Brody recently has been finishing in 26th to 20th, I feel like, most Pro Tour events. Yeah. So he's going to keep kind of slowly chipping his way up. Raven is a little bit more hit or miss, but he has the talent to pop off for a top 10 here and there.
Yeah.
So I think when that happens once or twice, that'll really
definitely
bump him up. So let's go over to FPO. One of the big storylines coming in was Paige Pierce's return. Mm-hmm. And she returned. She won. She took it down over Katrina Allen in second. It was kind of your typical Cage and Pat. That's what we're calling it. Cage and Pat battle.
Pat. That's funny.
And then Jessica Weiss came in third here. So now that the tournament's over, what do you think of Paige's performance and what it means for kind of the rest of her season?
Yeah, this is huge for Paige. This is what we had been waiting for a long time. And it's impressive because not only did she, the first round was okay, but then, played a really strong second round. But then towards the end of the second round, kind of let up a little bit, and Kat got back into it.
Yeah. With
a really strong finish in that eagle on 18. So when that happened, I was kind of like, okay, now we have a real test because now she doesn't get a comfortable lead to play with. She's going to have to show up. And on the final round, not only did she have to show up, but Kat challenged.
Kat ended up shooting the course record.
Right. So Paige had to match, what Kat was bringing and hold her off, and she was able to do that and get the win. So it was a very strong showing, and I think that surely that has to be enough momentum for her to get her confidence back. And I would expect that as long as, it's tough to say, where her mindset's at, if she were to take another bad finish, if it could knock her down again. It's just something is unfamiliar territory with Paige Pierce, but I would like to think, I'm certainly not going to bet against her in the next event until I see anything else, but she certainly looked back.
Yeah, in that final round, Katrina Allen was storming back a little bit. I think Kat ended up shooting 10 down, which was the course record. Paige shot a 9 down, and realistically, going into 18, they were tied. And so Katrina Allen needed the eagle. I think she got the birdie. Paige just took a par because she could. Yeah. It's not like Paige was in a great position to birdie and chose not to. I think if she really was focused more on the course record, they probably could have both shot 10 down. Yeah. Paige was focused on winning, shot 9. But regardless, to have to go out that final day, and Katrina Allen demands basically a course record pace out of you to win and be able to put that up, I agree. I think that was a big thing for Paige's confidence, if nothing else. Mm-hmm. She talked about on the Nick and Matt show when she was in Hawaii, she was really struggling with her putting and trying to figure it out. And she said at one point she just sat there and stared at her putter and was like, Paige, you literally designed this putter for your putt. Stop thinking about it so much. Just putt the way you do, and you designed it to go in the basket. Like, he literally made this putter for you.
That's one way to think about it.
Yeah, I was like, I listened to that. I was like, what a flex, man. That's sick. Like, imagine if I'm like Hunter.
I don't know what kind of putter you have to design for us to get it in the basket.
Hunter, you put an electromagnet inside of this disc. If you just throw it, it's going in. No, but like, she's like, yeah, like, I designed this to work with my putting style. Why am I trying to figure anything out?
How big of a magnet do we need?
Is that a video idea right there?
That's what I was just thinking. Like,
how big of a magnet we had to put in a disc to make us good at putting?
If chains are like galvanized, like dipped, can they?
It'd be more to the pole.
Right.
The whole basket's metal. I mean, it's got to hit something.
Okay.
Incoming video idea.
Write that down. Forget your point. I'm thinking about magnets.
Yeah, I just thought that was a very interesting point of like, Paige, you literally designed this for your game. Just throw the disc. I'm like,
I find that a little bit like, I mean, okay, it's just an understable putter though. Like, like, all right. Okay.
I mean, yes and no. Another thing I found interesting about the Nick and Matt show interview is Matt asked her, where would you rate yourself? 1 being the worst performance you ever had, 10 being the best. She put herself at a 9 for this weekend.
I think it probably just was like a big relief and felt really important for her. So I agree with that rating. It was very important for her to get back on track.
Yeah, I think performance-wise, from what I've seen out of Paige, this was maybe like a 7. On her scale of what she's capable of.
That final round was really impressive.
The final round was good. And because I think part of it in my head is like the second round, she was like 25% C1X putting or something like that.
The first round or the second round?
I think that was the second round.
I think it was the first round.
Regardless, one of the rounds she was like 25% Circle 1X. And overall for the tournament, she was like mid-60s. I think it was like 67%.
But it's just because of that 25%.
It's because of the 25%. Yeah. But that's just something where when I'm looking at this whole tournament, I'm like, well, there's a bunch of strokes right there. Like, you expect Paige to be 80 to 90%. Right. And for her to be like a 9, I think that immediately shows you how important this win and this performance was to her. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's why it made it feel like such a great performance, is because it just kind of unlocked it. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking the rest of the season, we might end up seeing what we thought we were going to see. They are who we thought they were. Yeah. We might end up seeing what we thought we were going to see, which is a dominant Paige Pierce season. Although Katrina Allen has been playing very well.
Katrina is quietly having like an amazing season. It's just a bummer that like somebody just keeps getting hot each week. And figuring out
but
how
it's
to beat her.
The same thing like I was talking about with Calvin.
It's very similar.
If she's always in second and she's losing to a different person every week, it's hard to say she's not the best player in the world.
Right.
So as of right now, with how the season's been going, I would say Katrina Allen's the best FPO player in the world. Well, I can't say the world because we haven't seen the Europeans mixed in.
Yeah.
We unfortunately we might not get to. So on the Pro Tour, I would say Katrina Allen's probably the best player right now.
She's the one to bet on for sure.
But Paige has an easy chance to kind of rewrite that as the rest of the season goes on.
Mm-hmm. Sure, there's definitely a lot to play for still.
Yeah. And let's take a look at the standings, actually. We have Katrina Allen in first at 369. Paige is in second at 349. Kona Panis in third, 318. And then it drops off a little bit. Missy Gannon's in fourth at 282. Jessica Weiss at 274. And for the FPO, there's 16 get into the Tour Championship.
Yeah.
So we have Heather Young and Kat Mersch are tied at that line on 16th. But Cynthia Ricciardi, I believe is how you say her last name, and Valerie Mandujano are right behind them. So a lot of names that you recognize kind of towards that bottom 4. So it's going to be interesting kind of how that fluctuates and moves on. And the final thing I want to look at OTB is I want to look at the numbers here. The live round was pretty. I mean, the live coverage this weekend I was very impressed with. You obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably know how much we love live disc golf. Mm-hmm. Getting to watch things when it happens and as it transpires, just, to me, brings a different emotion to it. But I wanted to just kind of look where is live disc golf right now. So there's about 9,000 concurrent viewers, 9,000 people watching at the same time on YouTube. And I asked the Pro Tour how many were on Disc Golf Network. They said about 6,000 at the same time. So about 15,000, we'll say peak. It might have fluctuated a little bit. 15,000 peak concurrent watchers. All in all, pretty good. Yeah. You know what I mean? For disc golf right now. But when you look at it from a broader scope, it's a little confusing. Well, I don't want to say confusing. It's a little surprising.
Yeah. So
the live final round had 60,000 views on YouTube. That number is important just because of how YouTube calculates views, to where, you know, I might have been a viewer for like the first 10 minutes and then you hop on, so the concurrent viewers can be like a little bit off. Those 15,000 probably made up about 60,000 people. And the same thing goes on like a Jomez coverage. If I hop on and watch one hole, I still count as a viewer, whereas you watch all 9 holes on the front 9, you still count as a viewer.
Right, yeah.
And even if I come back in, another view. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If I keep rewatching it. So we can't look at it strictly as we have like this many people watching disc golf, because there's going to be a lot of fluctuation of like, oh, what the heck's this? Click on, oh, it's Frisbee golf, click off.
Right.
That's a view. But so the final round had 60,000 views on the Pro Tours, the live stream on their YouTube. The final front 9 on Jomez currently, as of last night, had 160,000 views.
Right.
So 100,000 views more. I just want to bring that up because it's just such a drastic disparity. And of those 100,000 more people, which really, it might be 150,000 more. Because you don't know how many people watch the live round that also watch Jomez. But we'll just say the 100,000 increase.
Yeah.
100,000 more people. I just am curious why they are choosing post-produced over live.
Right.
Like, what is the reasonings?
I think that because disc golf is on the weekend, when they're showing it, like the big rounds especially, I understand that there is a solid portion of people that are watching post-produced because they are not able to watch live, like they're busy, and therefore when they go and then want to watch it back, they're going to go to watch the Jomez because it's good coverage. And so, like, I understand that, like, that makes sense. That's what I would do. Like, if I missed it, that's probably exactly what I would do. But I feel like there's just too many people more on post-produce, that there has to be a solid percentage of people that are purposely not watching the live disc golf, either because they don't know about it. And you got to remember that that's probably still a pretty decent percentage of people. There's probably enough people that are just so brand new to disc golf that they know about Jomez, so they keep checking the Jomez channel for new things, but they're probably not really following the schedule, knowing things are live. So that's a little bit of a percentage, maybe more than we think it is. And then the other part of that percentage, the one that like probably frustrates us the most, are the people that are purposely saying, no, I'm just going to wait for Jomez because I like Jomez. I'm not going to watch the live coverage, even though I could watch it. Those are the ones that confuse me.
That's what confuses me. So first off, I love Jomez. I watch Jomez as like a highlight thing. Like if someone pops off and does a crazy round,
right?
You bet your bottom dollar I'm watching on Jomez. But I saw it live first.
Yeah.
Because to me, and maybe this is just, I don't know what it is, but I'm too invested to, even if there's no live coverage, I'm watching on UDisc.
Yeah.
Because I want to know what happened when it happened. And like, I can sit there and refresh UDisc and just have that same adrenaline of like, oh my word, they're on 18. Who's gonna win?
And I'll say too, like,
because it's going on right then.
Even like as a fan of the sport, that's whatever as far as wanting to be caught up live. But as a fan of certain players, that's where I really want to be caught up live, to where I'm going to be checking that UDisc even if I can't be seeing the coverage. Because like if I'm rooting for Paul and Brody, then like I want to know where they're doing out there. Like I don't want to wait to see what happens, or maybe possibly not even really know because they're not on the post-produced cards. Like I'm going to be checking in. And I understand too, like obviously because of what we do, we need to kind of be in the loop with what's happening. But like, it's just so different than any other sport because I know people who, when the NFL season comes along, they will DVR a game that they can't watch and then watch it later. But it's usually like that later that night, or maybe the next day, because it's so hard to avoid spoilers. But it's certainly not it's a very small minority of people. Well,
there's also, I think, in sports, like I'm a big Duke fan.
Yeah.
If I am traveling or something, I can't sit down and watch the Duke game. I'm just watching the ESPN, like the shot by shot, like they have that basketball court where you can see where the shots are coming from. I just sit there and stare at it.
And I think too, some people probably just haven't given live disc golf a try, because I think once you get yourself in, and there's not quite enough of a culture around it yet, because like once the social media and if you watch a round of live disc golf and you get in our live disc golf Discord channel and you experience that once, like you will never go back, because like it is so fun to get to interact with people and talk as things are happening.
There's a solid chance that you can hear the absolute chaos that's going on behind us. There's construction going on in the unit behind us. We're filming this at like 7 in the morning, thinking we're going to beat it, and we apparently can't. So, hopefully it doesn't get too bad. They've had jackhammers out there the past few days. If that starts, I don't know what we're going to do. But, no, I definitely agree. I think, because it's hard when I talk about this, because, like, I don't want to sound like I don't appreciate Jomez and Central Coast and Gatekeeper and what they have done for the sport and what they are currently doing. Because, Jomez has freaking 250,000 subscribers. Yeah. Like, if I sat here and said that they didn't have a crucial role in getting us to where we are as a sport, I would be just absolutely lying to you. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side of that token, I also think that a big part of the future of the sport is going to be everyone getting behind one avenue. I've heard a lot of people saying, why isn't that avenue Jomez? Why isn't that? Issue behind some of those is, where does that money go? Yeah. Right? If Jomez sells a coverage sponsor for $250,000 for the season, none of that's going back to bettering the tour or making it better for the players. That is nothing against Jomez. Yeah. Right?
It's their business.
It's their business. If we sell a sponsor to this podcast, none of that goes to the players because it's our business. Mm-hmm. But if it's the Disc Golf Network, it might not go directly to the players, but it's going to the organization that's helping the players.
All right.
If that makes sense. So that's where my head's always at.
And more importantly, sports are meant to be consumed live.
That's what I've seen some people say, that we're idiots and that we're wrong and that everything's going towards post-produced. Sports will never be post-produced fully. Yeah, never. Ever, ever, ever.
It's just not true.
Niche ones like disc golf, because doing live is very expensive. But we clearly now have enough funding to be able to produce a pretty decent live stream.
It's just ridiculous to think about that. Yeah. Like March Madness, post-produced.
Like, man, dude.
The Super Bowl, post-produced.
I wonder who won that. Because also, imagine going into work. March Madness, great example. Imagine going into work Friday after 16 games had happened Thursday. And they all were released Friday morning. So I'm a maniac. I watched all of them somehow. Yeah. It's not possible. But let's just say in this scenario I watched all of them. You are a casual fan, so you watched 3 of them.
Right.
And then I show up and I start talking about it. Since it's post-produced, not everyone's watching at the same time. So now all social media, everything would just be screwed. Because then, how can you talk about it?
Yeah.
Because we even see it in disc golf where people comment spoilers on,
That's the worst.
People comment spoilers on the Pro Tour's posts. What? Why are you following the Pro Tour if you care that much?
Genuinely, if your whole commitment to, if you were listen, I work on the weekends. I can't watch live disc golf, and I really like watching the Jomez coverage and just having it happen in real time for me and finding out who wins just then. That is fine. That is completely fine.
Yeah.
But then don't force it. Don't follow accounts that are going to post about it, or just don't even go on social media. It's their job to post about what's happening. That is what they do.
Yeah, that's what in other sports, people who record the Duke versus UNC game. Imagine them going on ESPN and being like, "Oh my gosh, how did you post the clip of the game winner? Are you kidding me? I didn't watch it yet." What?
They're a business.
It's ESPN does not cater to you.
Yeah.
ESPN caters to the masses.
Yeah.
The Pro Tour, the majority of people who follow them want to keep up with what's currently going on in the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
So if the Pro Tour was not the first person to post, then we would be. Or someone would be, to where now we can capitalize on that. So now if you want to know exactly what happened, you're going to go somewhere else, and the Pro Tour is going to miss all of that.
Yeah.
The Pro Tour doesn't cater to the Jomez audience, because the Jomez audience per se, or the Gatekeeper audience, that's not directly making the Pro Tour money.
Yeah.
Because, that's just how it works. But I wanted to pose this more so because I want to talk to you, the audience, and ask what you prefer, live disc golf or post-produced, and why you're choosing one or the other. Because I think you're right. There's some people who Sunday on the free live round, they just don't have time to watch it, and they watch it Monday.
Yeah.
But then there is going to be some people who were sitting around the house watching TV anyways that day and just knew the live disc golf was going on and decided to watch Jomez or decided to watch Gatekeeper. Yeah. That's what I want to know is, why is that decision being made? I'm just curious. And if you're listening on audio, tweet at us. Tweet at Trevor or myself over on Twitter. And let us know, because I'm very curious. I just want to kind of start that conversation and try to understand it more, because obviously what I think and what Trevor thinks is not the right answer. It's just our opinion on the answer. And the best way to grow the sport is to start discussions about why things are the way they are and how to kind of change it if it needs to be changed and all of that stuff. And if it's just Trevor and I sitting here, in an echo chamber, then we'll never understand what else is going on. So I want to kind of start that conversation. So make sure you comment or tweet at us and let us know that. But with all that being said, that's all for the OTB Open. Let's head into your favorite segment, voted on by me, Trevor's Trivia. What you got?
So this is funny because I did not know that you were going to talk about the DG Pro Tour rankings. So now that you've seen them, you probably have a better chance at getting this question right. It's still not going to be a gimme.
I did not look super in depth into them.
Okay, but you're definitely going to have a better chance.
Okay.
And it's just coincidental. So I was this morning, I hopped on and I was curious to see if they had updated any world rankings on the PDGA website. They still haven't.
They update it once a year.
Right. I don't know why.
At the end of the year.
It doesn't really make any sense.
It never does.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, so wow, we haven't had world rankings now for quite a while. Like, they're pretty...
I don't even think they updated them. Did they update them last year?
No, the end of 2019 is the last time they updated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, this is interesting because I wonder how this compares to, like, what's really going on right now. So I went to the Pro Tour standings and kind of compared, and so on the end of 2019 world rankings, there's 20 players there in that they have on that front page. And I compared those 20 to the Pro Tour rankings. And the question is, there are 3 players from the current Disc Golf Pro Tour top 10 who are not in the end of the 2019 World Top 20.
Jeez.
Who are they? 3 players. They're in the top 10 in the Pro Tour right now, weren't even in the top 20 in the world based on the PDGA World Rankings at the end of 2019.
I'm trying to think of what went down in 2019. Because Calvin Heimberg won his first NT in 2019, so Calvin Heimberg was in there. Who else is in the top 10 of the Pro Tour rankings? I mean, I don't think I'm going to know this. Because I really paid heavily attention to the top 5. So I'm going to cheat and look at my list here. But Calvin, Ricky, Eagle, Paul, Nico are definitely in the top 20.
That's not going to help you.
There's no way. So it's the next 5. So 3 of the next 5?
Yeah.
Holy cow. Who would be in the top 10? Who's been surprisingly popping off? It would have to be Colton Montgomery possibly.
No.
Yeah, he's not in the top 10 right now. What are you thinking, Hunter? Come on. But I mean, that was a decent
That wasn't an awful guess.
Because I was thinking Pro Tour winners that might not have been up there. Although he might have won Waco in 2019. So no, it doesn't matter. Hunter.
I don't think he was in either of those.
You know what? I just straight up don't know. Because I don't know. Can I cheat and look at the next 5 list?
You will probably pretty easily get it at that point.
Yeah.
You don't have a single guess?
I don't know the next 5. The Pro Tour top 10 is a mystery to me.
These players are not that difficult.
James Conrad might be in the top 10, but he should have been in the top 20 in 2019.
Okay, well, I will give you the next 5, but this is going to make it incredibly easy. So you've missed this
I've
question.
lost. Yes, I agree.
The next 5 players are James Conrad, Drew Gibson, Adam Hammes, Ezra Aderhold, and Garrett Gerthy.
So it's got to be Adam Hammes.
Yes.
Ezra.
Yes.
Yeah, I would assume Double G.
No.
Drew?
It's true. Double G is in there. He's like 10th. He was like 10th in the world.
See, so that Adam Hammes and Ezra, I wouldn't expect to be on the top 20, but I did not think they were in the top 10. Because Ezra's been having a little bit of a rough season overall.
Yeah, he's in 9th right now. He has a couple good finishes, and he has a 2nd place. And
the second place.
Yeah,
the top 3 in a Pro Tour gives you a
huge.
lot of points.
It's absolutely massive.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's no way I would have guessed that because it would have taken me a long time to get around to Adam and Ezra.
Ezra is a tough one, but Adam, we just talked about. I just mentioned on the last podcast that he was 8th, so I thought you may have a chance at that. And somebody tweeted at us about it yesterday that he was 8th.
I didn't see that tweet.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I just failed that one.
Nice.
That was did you look at the FPO at all?
I did not actually. That'll be next week, I guess.
All right. Well, now I can study.
I was very much under the gun this morning to come in at 7 and quickly find some trivia questions.
It's okay. I was up till like midnight planning this podcast last night to try to beat the construction that we still lost.
Although I will say I have a feeling, well, actually FPO might be pretty similar. There's quite a few new people on the scene since the last World Rankings.
You'd probably have to go top 5, top 10 on FPO because I would imagine if you go top 10, top 20, there wouldn't be too many that snuck in there.
It might be hard for you to guess what the Pro Tour standings are, though.
I'm not going to look.
That's what I'm saying.
I refuse to look beyond what my top 5 is.
Yeah.
I mean, I would imagine Kona and Missy probably weren't in the top 10. in 2019.
That's true.
I could be wrong, though. All right, now the next thing I want to take a look at is we've kind of briefly mentioned this a few different times, but Paige Pierce recently was interviewed on the Nick and Matt show. It was her first podcast interview in a while that I know of.
Yeah.
She's done some interview with the Pro Tour and stuff like that, but she really opened up in this Nick and Matt show interview. If you haven't listened to it yet, we're going to hit some of the talking points, but obviously I don't have Paige's direct quotes here. I'm just going to kind of summarize what she was talking about. So I highly recommend, it's on the same YouTube channel, or you can find it if you're listening to Apple Podcasts, the Nick and Matt show. It's a Foundation Podcast Network podcast hosted by Nick Carl and Matt Graham. The Paige interview is a great interview. It's also done the same episode as Aaron Gossage, so it's a great listen if you haven't already listened to it. I highly recommend checking it out. The first thing, I'm going to kind of circle back to the U.S. women. She had quite a bit to say about U.S. women, so I'm going to try to finish that out with that because it'll transition us into the next topic. But one thing that I didn't know is she obviously went to Hawaii and missed 2 weeks, right? During those 2 weeks, she missed NT at, was it the DDO? Is that what she missed? I believe so.
I think so.
And then she missed, is it Challenge at Goat Hill next?
Mm-hmm.
So she missed the NT and a Silver Series. Okay. One thing I didn't know is she said that in a small way, she's kind of boycotting the national tour right now.
Yeah.
She didn't really say it's a big boycott, it's public, but her reasoning is she basically called out the PDGA and said that she doesn't really think they care about the pros or the professional side of the sport. She challenged them to come out to the tournaments and says she doesn't really ever see them at the events. I would assume she means the high up people, because they usually have one guy, I believe it's Mike Downs, who's out there representing them. But she said the Pro Tour does an amazing job, and after every event is putting out polls, asking the players what they did right, what they did wrong, what they could improve on, what they thought of the tee pads.
That's cool.
Everything. She said the PDGA's never done that.
Right.
So she kind of was basically saying, I'm a little fed up with the PDGA. And some of it also goes back to what we're going to talk about with her at U.S. Women's. But I thought it was very interesting to hear her kind of be to be honest with you, I'm boycotting the national tour a little bit right now.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before, but now that we hear it from a very respectable person in the space, Paige Pierce, 5-time world champ, does this farther, it has to, but does this farther ingrain in you that the PDGA just needs to cut ties to the national tour and let the Pro Tour take over?
Yeah. I think it's happening anyways, but the PDGA, man, they're just a mystery, because I do think the PDGA, their money is really coming from the AMs. So, I think that's where they put their focus, whatever that even means. I'm not even really sure what they do, to be honest. I don't know. I good for Paige for coming after them, because here's another thing. What can they do? What can they do to Paige for saying something like that? Nothing. Her allegiance is to the Pro Tour. Those are the ones paying her. The PDGA, I guess they could suspend her, but that wouldn't go over well with anybody.
No.
So, good for her for speaking out. I think more players should if they have problems with the PDGA. I just don't the fact that she's saying they don't even go to majors or show up to anything
that. She was kind of alluding to it, but I don't know. Again, I don't really know who she's talking about. I feel like that was more of a specific, maybe to the board or something, because I've been to plenty of majors, and usually there's several representatives of the PDGA there.
Okay.
That is some of their job, the tour manager, stuff like that. Now, the only one I've seen the executive director of the PDGA, Joe, at is majors in Atlanta or in Appling around the IDGC, or even he comes to Worlds as well. I feel like I've probably seen him at USDGC, but it's a lot of times it's Southeast stuff, so maybe it's more towards him. I feel like that was a more directed point, but she didn't want to put a name on who she was talking about, because the PDGA is definitely represented at these majors. I don't want it to sound and I don't think she would want it to sound there's literally no one from the PDGA there. But
she kind of made it sound like that for this U.S. Women's
Some of her
course.
complaints about U.S. Women's, I have a hard time believing that the PDGA has been out there.
Because, she said, she was asking if they had even seen the courses that they put out.
Which that one, we'll get into that in a second, because that's a whole different mystery. But, yeah, when she was talking about some of this stuff, I was like, holy cow, props to you, Paige, because, what you're saying is true. What can the PDGA really do? But at the same time, it's a big part of her livelihood, playing professional disc golf.
Well, sure.
And being willing to be point out things where you
nobody
see
else
it messed
is
up.
really doing it publicly, at least. So
Yeah.
like I think it like.
Well, we've seen Paul call him out before a little bit too.
Yeah, disc golfers need to, when there are issues with like these governing bodies, and if there's issues with the Pro Tour, or whatever, like they've got to be vocal about it, because like that's gonna force change. The Pro Tour.
Well, that's what I really like about what she said is like the Pro Tour seems to provide an avenue for the players to speak their
exactly,
minds.
and they're the type of group where we've already seen like if there's things that even if the fans want to change, like they change it. Like the All-Star format, we all thought it stunk. Not very long after, they announced next year's All-Star format is going to be what we want it to be. We all talked about tour cards. They're trying to do the tour card thing. Like the Pro Tour is very much...
They got their ear to the ground.
Right, exactly, which is what you have to do, because that is how you're going to get successful, is if you're providing what the players want first, and then also listening to the fans. So.
Well, it also helps like PR of the Pro Tour, because if like let's say that Paige is ticked off of the Pro Tour for something, she has an avenue to directly talk to who she wants to talk to and knows who to talk to
without blasting them,
without having to like come out, because she said like right now she's like, I don't even know who to reach out to about half this stuff with the PDGA. So that's why she's like kind of being public about it. She's like, I want to talk to someone at the PDGA, but like I don't even know who to talk to.
Yeah, it's bad.
And so that's where to me I was like, well, props to the Pro Tour for providing these avenues, because I'm fairly certain it's like a player only Facebook group that like most of the top players are in, to where they can post like, hey, because I remember there was something with the Pro Tour finale or Tour Championship a few years ago where they had to like move locations and stuff, and they were like literally like letting the players know weeks in advance of the public knowing, like, hey, this is what's possibly coming down the pipeline. What do you think of this change versus this change? Like, the players just all commenting their feedback so that they can make an educated change versus the PDGA adding a fourth major and being like,
just about to say,
boom, players suck it. Like,
yeah.
I mean, come
like,
on.
I hope you guys like the new match play format we just did. Like, instead of actually gauging.
I hope you enjoy playing 2 rounds of golf that aren't going to mean anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Versus the Pro Tour, it sounds like they would have been posting in that group like, hey, here's what we're thinking about adding as an event. What do you think of these formats? Here's a poll to put up. Like, let us your opinion be known. To where if a player is like, the Pro Tour doesn't listen to us, the Pro Tour can be like, no, like you just don't respond to anything we're asking. So the player would never say that. So I was very impressed with Paige being willing to say that. She also showed some displeasure in the rating system with the PDGA, but for a different reason than we've ever talked about. Because her reasoning is she's like, basically, when COVID shut down and everything, and it kind of reset her rating, whatever, and then she had like 2 bad tournaments in a row, or a few bad tournaments in a row, she's like, it literally just erased 4 years of my work.
Yeah.
That was her displeasure.
Yeah, I don't.
Because she was basically like, I've been working towards this for so long, and some could argue that the reason she was able to get to 996 is the same reason she's upset with, is because it erased 4 years of her work.
She was.
But it is a good point, because she's like, if the rating is supposed to be an overall average of what I'm able to do, then I don't know. The more you like look into it, there's a lot of things, and I'm not smart enough to know the mathematical answers as to why things should be different ways, but she makes a valid point there.
Yeah, I do like understand that like she was shooting for that 1,000 rated, and like that would have been historical for the FPO, but like at the same time, like if you're a pro, especially like the top of the women's game, like you really should not be concerned about ratings.
Well, the issue is, and I'll always say this,
it's because everyone
talks about ratings.
Yeah. Well, you got to lead by example, though.
But everyone is measuring her worth and everything based on like her rating. If she would have got to 1,000 rated, it would have been a huge money making thing for her. B, it would have been a huge it would have put her in history of disc golf because of how much weight is put on ratings.
The pros control that narrative though, because
they don't.
Yes, they do. If every time there's a ratings update, Ricky and Eagle and whoever are posting a big old graphic on their Instagram talking about how awesome their new rating is. If every single top pro in the men's field, like the top 20, all publicly said that they do not care about ratings and never post about them ever again, and just acted like they don't even exist. If they all agreed that like we are done with ratings, people would stop caring about them.
I guess if it was a collective,
it would have to, it would have to start. It would start at the top. It would take a few players like really like convincing the others like, hey, we need to stop like talking about ratings. It could happen. They control the narrative.
I mean, I guess from that
AMs
aspect,
are always going to care a little bit.
Well, that's why I like the idea of you get to 1,000 and your rating just turns to 1,000 plus.
I agree.
Kind of like, because every golfer on the PGA Tour, is scratcher better.
Yeah.
well,
the
probably
ones
a lot better
that
than Scratch.
the ones that are gonna finish in any kind of relevant spot at least.
I mean, do you think you can make?
Are you talking about the PGA Tour?
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm saying
yes.
they're all. There's no way they're on there not
Right.
Scratch or better. And
Yes.
Thousands technically supposed to be Scratch.
Right. Yes.
So you would know the top players in the world. Yeah, they're better than Scratch. They're great.
Yes.
And that way, a player like me, where I'm like 970 or 60 or something, I still see my rating and I still have something to shoot for.
Yeah.
Because the 4 digits is what like you always shoot for in disc golf.
Yeah.
Because then it still allows us to see the round ratings, to use that because that's a good stat.
Yeah.
When you compare it within just a tournament going on.
The PDGA,
but I guess you can just use score.
The PDGA controls people with the amount of value that is placed on ratings because it adds so much value to their sanctioning of events. Like that is, say whatever you want. There are so many people that only care about an event being sanctioned because of the ratings.
No, absolutely.
That is absolutely it. And I understand why the ratings are fun because as a player who is maybe just an AM or is not really thinking they're going to cash and they're looking for something to gauge their improvement on, it's a fun way to track like how you're doing. But it's just so inaccurate that like it has the negative effect because it can be so discouraging when you just go to an event and you finally play well and the ratings are just awful.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we would in college, the best round I ever played in my life in college. And you won this event at Seco. You shot a round that should have been probably 1030, 1040 rated. And it was like 980. Just because of the field and the way the ratings work. Like the ratings are awful. They're awful. Like I would rather see them just eradicated from the sport than exist in the way they do now.
Yes.
I do agree though that the 1,000+ thing would solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, well, I think cause like even back to Paige's point of like, I don't know. Another thing with rating is it decides a lot of like what you can and can't do, especially on the AM side. There's like certain ratings caps of when you can and can't play.
Right.
And
that
there's
makes some
also
sense.
like the Pro Tour right now, any Elite Series event, the minimum cap's 900. That should obviously there should be a lot of different ways to qualify, but
it's got to be a tour
as
card.
as of right now, the rating decides a lot. Yet it's a total average, so it doesn't really show what you're actually capable of.
Yeah.
Because there was a time in my disc golf career before I retired, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
But there was a time where if I played my absolute best golf, I could shoot 1030 some.
Yeah.
But if I played my bad golf, I could shoot 920.
Yeah.
So if I went into I wasn't an AM at the time, but my rating wise, I could have been. I was like 970. If I went into an AM event as a 970 rated player, and then I shot my great golf, then I was going to destroy the field.
Right.
Because I'd be shooting like 1,000 some rated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was a tournament, it was, as a pro, I lost to Matt Hammerson, but I averaged 1030 some rated golf across the tournament. I played out of my mind all 3 rounds, right? So what Brody has said before, and I think the more I think about it, the more it kind of makes sense, is that it should almost, if we want to keep ratings, it should almost be like the standard deviation or something that should change to where it shows more what you're capable of than what your average is.
Right.
So that way you don't have someone who's 930 or 40 rated but is able to shoot 1,000 rated golf playing intermediate and then A, screwing the whole intermediate division because they just pop off a weekend and win by 30. B, screwing the whole rating system because now you have like a 930 rated player shooting 1020 rated golf and the PDGA isn't going to let them shoot 1020 rated golf.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a tough one, though,
I didn't even want to talk about ratings.
Yeah, it's a tough one. My last point would be, like, because, like, in ball golf, the handicap system, like, you turn in scorecards with witnesses. You kind of control your destiny on your handicap a little more because, like, it's not, you know, you're not doing it in, like, competitive events. Like, you're kind of just, like, having witnesses and, like, getting a signed scorecard and submitting it to a course. But a little bit of the issue is, like, in ball golf, you can't really shoot a fluky, like, I think you have to do 5 rounds for a handicap. That might be wrong, but I think it is. You can't really shoot, like, 5 fluky good rounds. And, like, but in disc golf, I feel like somebody can fluky string together, like, 1030 rated golf just because they're at the right tournament, at the right course. In ball golf, like, no matter where you are, that just doesn't really happen. Like, you can't really, like, fluke and all of a sudden shoot a round that's, like, on par with rating as, like, it's like if you were to go get a handicap and you fluke your best rounds of your life and that your handicap is the same as Tiger Woods. Because somebody could, like, go out there and fluke a few 1040 rated rounds when they're not that good, and like that's the same rating as like the top
That's like that
three
player
players in
who
the world.
showed up to a Texas weekly
Right,
and was
and
the 6th highest rated player in the world.
Right. It's just
Things like that are where I'm
the system
like,
is just so busted. It's so bad.
And I can guarantee you we're not getting rid of the ratings anytime soon.
No.
Because of
Heck
how
no.
much the PDGA paid to have the rating system.
Yeah.
I saw it on a Facebook comment somewhere. I believe it's pretty accurate because of who said it. It was close to $1 million over a certain amount of years, I think, that the PDGA paid.
They know how important
actually, I
it
can't
is.
even say the PDGA paid. We, the listeners and the PDGA members,
Yeah.
are continually paying for this rating system that more and more people are being vocal about, like, hey,
Where's our money going?
more and more people are being like, hey, I don't really know if this makes sense at the level we use it at.
Yeah.
And so I can guarantee you we can talk and talk and talk till our face is blue about the ratings. It's not going anywhere.
No.
There's no way. Paige also brought up a pretty good point towards the end. She was talking about how much she valued her sponsors and thanking them. And she went to a little bit of a rant on sponsorship and brought up basically how players going into being sponsored need to know what they're worth. Now, this is also going to tie into a Brody interview on the Nick and Matt show because Brody brought up a good point of he basically alluded to the current disc golf market right now of imagine trying to sell your house on the real estate market with there being no real estate agents.
Right.
So, or in like every other house contract is under an NDA.
So you don't know what.
So how would you know what your house is worth?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
You'd have no clue. That's kind of what the disc golf market is right now. But Paige was basically saying like, if you know, and she equated it to like a hourly job. She's like, if you know your skills and everything are worth $25 an hour, and you show up and the company offers you 15, and it's like, well, we can eventually get you to 25. She's like, don't say yes to that. Don't settle just to wear someone's logo on your back.
Yeah.
She's like, because in disc golf, I feel like it was the same kind of like skateboarding and like any kind of sport like this. Everyone wants to be sponsored.
Yeah.
Like being able to wear a team logo on your back, you just feel like, even if you're on a street team, you feel like if you can show up and you got Team Prodigy on your back, no one knows you're on a street team. That's the whole point. You feel like the sickest person walking out there shooting 920 rated golf.
Right.
I've been there.
Yeah.
But everyone wants to be sponsored. And she's basically saying on the pro side, like a higher level, if everyone is just saying yes to like free stuff, because Brody also talked about this with sponsorships, and we have faced this with podcast sponsors and video sponsors, where there's a lot of people who, for a video, for instance, if you just send them free product, they'll do a full video on your product because, frick, I just got a free thing out of it.
Right.
They don't realize what that promotion's worth to the company. So then the company goes to person A and is like, hey, here's this product. Boom. You know, that person has 5,000 subscribers. Here's this product. Free. Go to the person with 10,000 subscribers. Here's this product. Boom. They got the promotion for free. And then they go to us, 50-some thousand subscribers. And we're like, yeah, that'll be X amount of dollars to promote it. They're like, what the? No. I just gave it to X, Y, and Z for free. Like, go, no. Get out of here. And then it's just like, well, what the heck? So now how do X, Y, and Z, as they grow, ever expect to make money?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with, because Brody was talking about it on the social media side. Paige is talking about it on the professional sponsorship side, where she's like, if you're just like, oh, sick, I can throw Daredevil discs for $5,000 a year, and you're moving and you're worth $45,000, and you say yes to it, then when the next company, when they go to the next player who's a little bit better than you, they're gonna expect to pay $10,000 when that player's worth $100,000.
Right.
And it's like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's all skewed, and I like the biggest problem too. Like now, everything's getting really weird now because now the only like notable public contract is Paul's contract, which is such a unique contract that probably never happen again, or at least in the format that it's in. I'm not saying there won't be a contract for more money than that. And it's such an outlier right now. There is nobody even close to making that kind of money based on what we know about people's contracts, which that's the other thing too, is contracts are so like he said, she said, and it's through the grapevine.
You never know if it's like the telephone game.
Right. But I think we know enough to understand a little bit about what people are making on tour, and there are definitely people that are getting gypped super, super badly.
Yeah, and they might not know. And it's like what Brody was saying. Without a manager, right, who the manager now has a wide portfolio of 10 players, or there's 3 managers and they all talk to each other, where they know, hey, I just got James Conrad this deal at X amount per year, and now I've got like a comparable player in Kevin Jones. You know what I mean? And they're both managing them. Kevin and James might never talk business and talk numbers, but now they have the same manager or a connection of managers to where, hey, Kevin, which I don't know if all this is completely made up scenario, so don't take this as any truth. But like, hey, Kevin, you're getting way underpaid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just got James this contract. We need to renegotiate your contract because now there's a middleman who knows those numbers.
Yeah.
That's going to be crucial.
Agents are going to be big, but the other thing, like the thing with agents is they can't get involved in the sport, and like good agents that aren't in disc golf won't try to get involved in disc golf until there's enough money being made that they can just take an agent's fee and live off of that.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Is I've talked to some of our listeners have connections to different sports agencies.
Yeah.
And one of them in particular I've talked to about everything under the sun, from Bitcoin to social media to sports agencies. And he has connections to a rather notable sports agency. And I told him, like, hey, I talked to Paul and Brody. If your agency's open to representing them as a disc golfer, like, they'd be open to talking. And the sports agency's response was basically like, we're just not interested in getting disc golf right now. Like, it wouldn't make enough sense financially for us to do it.
Sure, yeah.
And then Paul signs the 10-year, $10 million deal. That might have changed their mind a little bit. I don't know.
It's just an outlier.
But until that's, you can represent 10 people and they're all doing that.
And the thing is,
then it'll make it a little more.
You can't. And the other thing is that isn't there yet is, as an agent, you're not just making your living off of the fee you're taking off of the contract you negotiated. You're negotiating other endorsement deals.
Yeah.
And those are outside of disc golf. Like, now, Paul, we've seen with like the Celsius promotion, and obviously
that's just a social media promotion. I'm pretty sure. I don't think it's an actual sponsorship.
Right, but that's a deal that like an agent can negotiate and get a fee from. So like that is like.
But that's a different agent.
Not necessarily. No.
A lot of times.
Like LeBron,
I mean, you can probably use the same one.
Yeah, but like, I mean, in disc golf, like, it would probably just be one guy.
But what I'm saying right now is, if Paul went out to find an agent, he could probably, with his size and everything, find a social media agent right now pretty easily. That social media agent, though, because that's like Brody has a social media agent.
Yeah.
That social media agent, though, wouldn't be used to selling a sports player in the sports world.
Yeah.
So I think it's two different ball games, because there's going to be some disc golfers, Simon's probably in the same boat, where they can go out and get a social media agent to sell to outside brands, but selling them as a player is a whole different ball game. So that's where I think there's almost two. Now, a sports agent could probably cross over into social media a lot easier than the other way.
That's what I was saying.
But you almost it's going to be hard to find. Disc golf's not big enough money-wise, or it might not be publicly big enough money-wise yet, for players to be finding these sports agents that can also go to their social media.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's big enough social media-wise right now, because, I mean, 100,000
on a small scale, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously,
you might find somebody that's just doing freelance social media agency, or like it's a company.
I don't know. Yeah, you could. Yeah, there's some companies online that you can just like fill out your own profile and they'll act as your social media agent, where they just kind of send you links here and there to, hey, I don't know, some type of mean mug wants to sponsor a video with you. You know what I mean? That type of thing. That's definitely, disc golf's definitely there. Let's look at the tournament coming up this weekend, the first professional major of the year. Everyone's been calling it the first major of the year and just completely acting like college nationals doesn't exist. I mean, come on.
I mean, whose fault's that? College nationals.
The media's.
The media, man. Yeah. It's all the media's fault. Everything's the media's fault. Wait, are we the media?
We suck. But U.S. women's, the first professional major, the first. I mean, I'm not gonna call it the first real major, because I don't want to discredit college nationals like that. The second major of the year, U.S. women's. In the interview, this was a pretty big contention for Paige, because it's what's going on. The FPO at the U.S. women's is playing 3 rounds across 3 courses. I want to tackle 2 different things here. First thing, before we get into the 3 courses side, what are your thoughts on a 3-round major?
Definitely a bummer. Like, I don't like it. I don't think it's like, I mean, this is U.S. women. This should be 4 rounds.
Yeah.
I just don't.
It's a major.
Yeah. I don't like it.
My thing, a major title.
If the sport has already set the example that the biggest events have 4 rounds, then like you really need to keep the pace with that.
Well, that's what I'm thinking in my head is like, it's a major. The winner of this will be a major champion. go down in history. There should be zero chance that it's a fluke. Zero chance.
Right, yeah.
This tournament is set up for a pretty solid chance of a fluke win. Not saying whoever wins will, but 3 rounds, it's a little bit of a shorter tournament.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think 4 rounds, that additional rounds, gives yet another chance for the top players right at the top. B, it's 3 rounds at 3 courses. So players, and there was a Pro Tour last weekend. So players are just now getting into town.
Yeah.
The tournament probably starts on Friday, I believe. So players are just now getting into town. They have Monday through Thursday, 4 days to fully learn 3 courses.
Yeah.
And then they have to play 1 round at each course. So they can't even like reevaluate and go back. You're not setting a player up for success. And this is what Paige is very upset about. And she called out the PDGA and she said, and to be honest with you, I fully agree with her in this. She said if this was a men's major, this wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And you know what?
All right.
Sometimes like stuff like that will get said and you're like, is that true? This is true.
Yeah.
Like imagine if this was USDGC and also not only that, because she was like, have you guys even been out here? Because she's posting on her Instagram story where hole 12 at one of the courses plays like straight ahead, right? And then you walk back to the right for hole 13 and it plays straight across the same fairway.
Yeah.
There's intersecting fairways. That's like course design 101.
Don't cross fairways.
You don't cross fairways
Yeah.
for safety's sake. And you're doing it in a major.
Yeah.
So now you're just asking for backups because they're going to wait for each other. It's just
the whole
very
U.S. women's thing is like, I really wish that U.S. women's was just like collaborative with USDGC.
Well, that's what it confused me at the beginning of the season. We've been
is now
tracking the Throw Pink Women's Disc Golf Championship. They've been tracking the spots, the qualifying. It's been a big deal.
Yeah. Because like that's the one I'm like really interested in.
Yeah, it's almost more of a storyline than U.S. Women's. So why is it not the major?
Right.
Why is it only an 8th year?
And I don't have a problem with there being a women's only major. Like that's great. But like they should probably not make it the U.S. women's when like we associate U.S. like majors with the USDGC.
Well, no, I'm fine with it being U.S. Women's. It's just
I don't know. I think it's confusing.
Well, I think just make it happen at USDGC. I understand it's not like a women's only major.
Well, then what happens
se.
to the Throw Pink thing? That's a USDGC.
I think you turn that into the.
Okay.
Last year it was the women's nationals.
Well, the reason, but Innova owns that, and that's why they're using Winthrop.
I understand it,
there's
but
a bureaucratic
if
crossover
there's any
there.
major, because right now the USDGC, other than the Throw Pink women's, for years USDGC has been a men's only major or a mixed Pro Open only major. MPO doesn't say for men's; it stands for mixed. It's been a mixed Pro Open only major, so pretty much men's only. Paige, Des Redding, Katrina Allen, I think Aline King. There's only a handful of women's ever qualified for it. Why not? They've already proven that they can run the most prestigious major in our sport.
Yeah.
Why not let the women be a part of that? Why not add the FPO field like the Throw Pink women's?
Yeah.
And let Innova do what Innova does at USDGC, which is put on one heck of a major, a very prestigious major at a very prestigious course that everyone knows it's only one course. It's going to be up to the standards, and make that the women's major.
Yeah.
US
this is PDGA's second flop idea in a row with majors. First, that awful match play idea with the men's, like 4th major or whatever, and now this like a major.
Well, this isn't a flop of an idea; it's a flop of execution.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Where it's a flop of an idea in the idea that it's 3 rounds and 3 different courses. It should be 4 rounds at one course, maybe 2.
If it's 4 rounds, I'm cool with 2.
2 is fine,
but
I'd prefer 1 and 3 and 3 criminal.
Yeah, 3
so
and 3.
Bad.
There's even 4 rounds and 3 courses is not good.
Yeah.
3 courses should never be happening in a major elite series. Even
there's just a sweet spot in golf. Like I agree, I don't want the old like Worlds formats where like we're playing 7 rounds and a final 9 and a billion different courses.
One thing you can say about those, which we've talked about it somewhat before,
the best player did win.
The best player won. I'm very curious. We'd have to go back and actually look through 4 rounds. How many times Paul would be a world champion, or even Climo would be a world champion if they were only playing 4 rounds?
Yeah, I don't know.
How many times do those extra 2 or 3 rounds? Because Paul, like in the Pittsburgh Worlds, he was out of it through the first like 2 or 3, and then went like course record to dominate.
Yeah.
But if you cut that to 4, I don't know. That's completely irrelevant. This major, though, it's a big disappointment, and I hope more and more people speak out about it. Because right now, the only person I've heard making a lot of noise about it is Paige. 3 courses, 3 rounds, unacceptable for a major. it sounds like some of the courses might not be up to what a major standard should be. And then the other problem that I have more with majors in general is because we were talking about this, because she had mentioned Pro Worlds only had 2 bids for people to run it. And you're like, what the heck? Why is that? And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, you know, we've talked about before putting up a bid for like Am Worlds or Pro Worlds or something like that. But part of the reason we haven't done it is the pressure of running a major. Like, I don't, because obviously if we put up the bid, I would be the quote unquote TD. You'd have a full TD staff, but that's a lot of pressure and a lot to undertake. And you have 2 years to prepare for Pro Worlds. I think that our Parks and Rec, I think Bedford Parks and Rec, and I think a lot of people that would be the support system are ready. They're, you know, they'd be some of the best the sport could have. And like, I'd love to be able to show that off.
Yeah.
But having just random people, like I've never even run an A tier. So for me to jump in, like, I think I could do it, but to jump in head first into a professional major, that's a big ask. And then I started thinking about it, I'm like, why is that even an ask?
Yeah.
Why is the PDGA not the ones running this?
Yeah, it should probably be a committee that runs like a thing like Worlds, because it's one thing if you're like, okay, I'm going to take on running this major and like it's going to be my job, and my job is going to be each year to run this specific major, to where you feel like you can build prestige around an event and really create something that lasts in disc golf. But if it's just a one-off thing and you might be remembered as the guy who ran that awful Worlds, then like, yeah, it's why on earth are you doing that? Like, I get like it's cool to be able to say, yeah, I was a tournament director for Worlds this year, but like,
and obviously there'd be a lot of support. You know, I know Robert Leonard, for instance, I think he's the TD of that 4th major, but I don't want to throw him under the bus with that because he's just the TD.
Yeah.
But he has done a lot of like assistant TDing and helping with majors. So for instance, if Worlds was actually here, I'm fully confident Robert Leonard would come up and basically not run it, but I could lean on him to make sure it's ran correctly. But it's still a big ask I'm just keep putting myself in that scenario, for my name to be listed as a TD for Worlds, to where I think that is a big hindrance, because that's realistically all that's stopping us. Because like, I just don't want to do it right now. I'm just not in the shoes to do it. And I think that's probably true of a lot of people. But like, if the PDGA was like, hey, you put up your bid for the courses, obviously I know the PDGA goes through a screening process of we'll come check them out.
It should really
it should be like, we'll come check it out. And then if you get the yes, we already have the structure. We already know how it's ran. We've been a part of every world championship ever. We're also going to provide the TD. So you just get the courses and everything ready. Right. We'll show up 2 weeks beforehand and make sure everything runs smoothly.
It should really be like, the reason you should really be bidding is it's like a tourism thing. Like, it should be like Bedford County should be the ones who are like, we want Worlds. We want to put in the bid for Worlds because we have these public properties that our courses are on. Like, it should really be like that kind of situation. Because like,
well, that's the core of it. I think that's what the PDGA wants it to be. But what it turns into is then it puts a lot of pressure on the club and whoever the TD is to execute.
Yeah.
Where that's where I think the biggest hindrance is. Because a lot of times, like for Bedford Parks and Rec is the perfect example. I am 100% confident that they could provide a World's quality courses and maintenance and all of that.
Yeah.
I'm just not 100% confident that the support staff that we could get. We've never ran a tournament that big.
Yeah.
So it's a big ask. And I think that's where we see things like this kind of coming in. Although Paige wanted to be sure that she didn't put any of the blame on the TD, because she said this is like 3 or 4 years in a row now that this is what we've dealt with.
Yeah.
And so she's like, it's not a TD issue. It's clearly the governing body issue. And that's why she was coming back at the PDGA with it. And I think it's more people need to talk about this. That's 3 rounds across 3 courses is unacceptable for any major, period. I think it's unacceptable for even an A tier on the pro level. I think it's great for AMs because one of the draws of AMs, you get to check out new courses and play a bunch of rounds. Sure. But for a major, for pros, heck no. And I think in this case, I fully agree with her. I do not think that this would happen if it was a MPO or a mixed major. You wouldn't see 3 rounds, 3 courses at Worlds.
Yeah.
You wouldn't see it.
Never.
You wouldn't see 3 rounds, 3 courses at USDGC or the European Open or anything like that. So why are we seeing it at US Women's?
Yeah.
Don't know. But we do want to talk about predictions for what we're going to see this weekend. I am going to go ahead and predict Katrina Allen is going to take this down. I think mainly because I think Paige is just going to be fed up with the event by the time it starts.
Yeah, I can't. That's what I was kind of trying to decide if that her anger was going to be a good thing or a bad thing.
That's all I think. And then I think Paige is still going to come in second. I think she's too good of a golfer for it to fully throw her out of it.
Yeah.
And I'll put Sarah Hokum in sneaky third.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Paige can still win, and then Kat in second, and Haley King I think is gonna sneak in third.
I almost put her in third.
Yeah.
No. She was not at the OTB Open, but she's back at U.S. Women's, so it'll definitely be interesting to see how she performs. But it's time to wrap the show up with Make That Call. So here you go, Trevor.
All right.
You're playing a course for a tournament. And the OB is defined by like plastic fence posts, right? Like, you know those thin ones that kind of like stand up and have a little bit of like give to them? It's important for the story.
Like, where have I seen these?
They're not technically like fence. At Manita, I think they have some. They're just like, they're like a little thick and they stand straight up and they kind of have like some give to them.
Is it actually like?
It's like it's more like, it's not like a fence, but it's more like a marking type thing.
Okay, just like a little post.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's not little. It's like 4 feet tall.
Okay.
Just picture that in your head.
Okay.
A little bit of a flexible piece of plastic sticking in the ground. That's what's used to define the OB line.
Okay.
Okay. So it's defined by that plastic fencing that has some flex to it. You throw a hyzer out over OB. When it comes back in, it hits the back of a fence post, flexing it towards the inbounds.
And then flings
it back OB.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
That's
Does that
hilarious.
count as your disc crossing inbounds for you to take it up there where it hit the fence post?
Oh,
or
gosh.
would it be crossed where the initial throw of the hyzer went OB?
So here's the thing, because like obviously you could be like, well, the disc was never on the right side of the fence, but I think the OB, and I'm pretty sure the OB is defined by the bottom of that post. So in theory, when the disc flexed, are we saying that it flexed enough that the disc got to the other side of the bottom of the post?
The disc would have crossed the plane.
Right. So yeah, for sure it crossed in and then went back out. You would
think.
There ain't no way. The PDGA is so
the PDGA's
dumb.
answer to this question
They picked the wrong day to pick a dumb call like that.
The PDGA's answer to the question on their Q&A section says, the fence defines an OB plane which flexes as the fence flexes. Unless the disc has penetrated and remained lodged within the fence is considered to be a continuous and penetrable surface. Your disc was not in bounds at any point when it struck the fence.
What are you? The bottom of the fence isn't flexing though.
It's basically saying that like this whole surface.
Yeah, it goes like this, and where does the bottom go?
Oh, I agree with you. It's
Nowhere.
just saying like since your disc never like it's saying that this is this
You have to get like past the wall essentially.
Like if you hit the inside of it where your disc crossed.
Oh my gosh, that's so dumb. That's incredibly dumb. I mean
that's the answer to the
here's
question.
the bottom line is that's probably, I don't know if that's ever happened.
Probably
Maybe
not.
that may have happened one time in the history of disc
And you know what? If
golf.
it did happen, I guarantee you the card's giving you that spot.
Yeah.
If everyone saw it flex in,
it
might be the quote unquote incorrect call,
but
but
pathetically bad ruling by the PDGA.
no one's making that call.
Awful.
Even now that I know it, if I saw it happen to someone,
I still wouldn't call them.
I still would be like, yeah, you crossed in.
Because I'd be like, that's the most unlucky thing ever, too, because you were obviously fading in before the stupid 4-foot tall pole ruined it.
Yeah.
Like, why are you marking your OB with that in the first place?
So
oh, my gosh, that's so bad.
There you have it, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Grip Locked. Be sure to leave us a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. If you're listening here on YouTube, like the video and subscribe. Turn on the post notifications so you don't miss when any of our podcasts go live. I also heard a rumor of another new one starting that I think you guys are really going to like. And by heard a rumor, I mean it's starting. I don't know why I heard a rumor. I control the channel. So you're going to really enjoy that one. Not sure when the official start date's going to be, but be sure to stay tuned for all of that, and we will talk to you all next week.